Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman, also known as B. Rent.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing?
I'm well. Thanks.
Our guest today is Brad Hunt. Brad is intern Brad.
Yep.
Right, Brad?
Exciting.
And
super excited.
It just so happens that Brad, we've got Brad coming into the office and learning to edit and produce film,
which I know nothing about.
Yeah, nothing.
But it's coming along.
And you know, it's funny. I wanted to get you on the podcast because Brad is actually a fairly skilled elk caller and hunter. And it's kind of funny. You can grab a cameraman that knows how to edit video, but not hunt. And then you can grab a guy that can hunt, but not edit video.
Yep.
And you got to teach one or the other. And honestly, it's pretty tough to teach a guy how to hunt that hasn't done it his whole life.
It is.
Especially when it comes to elk, where I'm like, video stuff might take a while, but you can pick it up. You know, at least for kind of what we're doing. I honestly haven't had very many cameramen that are like solid hunters and have a lot of experience doing that their whole life, and that also film.
Right.
Typically, we've had a lot of guys who know how to film but are new to hunting, and man, it really makes for, especially an over-the-shoulder bow hunt, it makes it tough because if you haven't stalked a lot of animals with the bow in hand, it's hard to know when you can move, when you can't move, what sounds they can pick up, and you just don't realize how slow and methodical and quiet you have to be if you've never done it before. You just don't.
And I think you get a guy too, and you can tell, I think right away, what kind of stalking hunting they've done, because if they're going on a hunt and they're stalking on an animal, if they're moving fast, quick, jerky movements, you know that it's not going well. It's not going to go well.
Right.
And that's all comes with experience. I mean, I'm definitely not a professional hunter by any means, but I've had some luck.
That's why I want to get into this a little bit. Folks, I don't really know Brad that well. I followed you on social and we've interacted there, and I've met you at the Total Archery Challenge, and you competed this year in the Rocky Mountain Elks Foundation's elk calling contest.
Yep.
You lost to Corey Jacobson.
I did. He's not that good or anything. He's only won it, I think 11 times now.
But you got pretty deep.
But I did.
In the round 5?
Yeah. Well, so round 4, I got knocked out against Corey. And then in round 5, I was still picking up my ego and everything else from losing to Corey, and I ended up taking 4th overall.
What made you decide to do it? Because you did it, your first time was last year?
Yes. Yep.
And how far did you get last year?
So I got knocked out in the second round last year.
So you got further than Dirk.
I did get further than Dirk. I made it the same as Jason. We both got knocked out, but I did make it farther than Dirk. No, I've pretty much all my life been around elk hunting, elk calling. I called my dad's first bull-in when I was 8 with the Wayne Carlton's fighting cow call. Mm-hmm. You blow it about 5 times and you got to turn it around and blow the saliva back out of it so it'll work again. But then I picked up a diaphragm and just every day I'd sit in a swather cutting hay or just started using it. And I guess I got pretty good with it. Started, going with my dad a lot more and kind of just listening to elk, how elk communicate, how they talk, and just trying to mimic those sounds. And then last year I won, it's not real big, but I won Idaho's calling competition. I just on a random whim decided, hey, I'm going to enter this in the pro division, and ended up winning it. And one of Jason's good friends, Brian Stone, I actually competed against him and beat him. And then Eric Strand and Brian brought me over and kind of like, hey, we're with Phelps and stuff, and I want to get a picture with you and talk to Phelps some more. And I'd met Jason a few times, been using his calls 5 years now. And I don't know, they seemed to be pretty good. And then this year, practiced quite a bit. Not a ton, but quite a bit. Just trying to get my routines, but then they changed it up on us.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of leveled out the playing field a little bit. But
how did they change it up?
So it used to be you do 45-second bull calls or cow calls, bull calls. So you had a pretty set routine. Well, this year they took, I think five different cow calls, cow-calf sounds, put them in, and then they did 3 different bull sounds. And so you do 3 total rounds. You would do 15 seconds of cow-calf calls, 15 seconds of your bull calls, and then you had a 30-second freelance period. So your guys that are super crisp and clean, like Corey is, they don't have that set routine. I mean, you have the 30 seconds, but where they're doing something different every round, it's never the same. Like I said, I think it evens out the playing field because some guys are stronger, whether it's their bugling, their cow calls, their calf calls. It evens it out and brings the guys that are down here up here, and it kind of plateaus the top guys that are good. But obviously, Corey was still took it, so it didn't even it out that much. But it was fun.
Yeah. And these things are basically you're calling on stage and people are watching.
Yep.
So what's that like? Because it's got to be a little nerve-wracking.
So the first time I did it last year, I was nervous as hell. I got up there and I was shaking, man. And
because sometimes, I mean, I've been there. Like, it's like you're a pretty good caller. And then sometimes the weirdest sound will come out.
That diaphragm will hit you in the back of the throat, and I don't know.
And you're like, that was not right.
Exactly.
And you don't want to be that guy.
I didn't full on choke when I went against Corey this year in the semifinals, but I know I kind of choked.
You went on your A game.
I was on top of my A game, and I don't know if this is Corey's strategy or not. So
did he get in your head?
So.
Oh, absolutely.
I called really well on the first day, that Thursday. So when we matched up head-to-head in the semifinals, before the calling starts, he comes up and sits down by me and kind of like, hey,
you shouldn't have done that.
No.
You should have been can't talk to you right now,
told
Corey.
him, get away. But he came up and he told me, he was like, I think this is what those judges want to hear, that crisp, clean, you can hold that note here. So I'm like, well, I can do that. I know I can. I've done it before. But then when it came to which we didn't know what we were calling yet.
Yeah.
Then we got our draws and stuff, and
psychological warfare
killed me, man. Just freaking crushed me. And it, I think going into that, I thought I was more prepared, and I totally did. I changed up my routine.
Yeah.
From what I had been practicing. I've always been kind of a heavier latex call guy, like Charlie. Charlie Smith has that signature series with Phelps. This is the double reed. It's their only double reed, and I'm not as deep and loud as Jason is and stuff, and so that's why I kind of same reason Charlie made that one is he's not as vocal, and to get that deep loud sound, that's what I used, and I didn't. I switched back and went back with the Maverick and Jason's, and it's not as loud for me. My lip balls aren't as good, and that's what really killed me. My lip balls were a lot more quiet than they should have been. But calf calls were good. They're easy, they're nice. But I choked bad. But it was fun. There's always next year.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and they change it up. They take with Rocky Mountain Foundation, they take in different insight from everybody. Like, hey, what can we change this year? What can we do different? And everybody's got their opinions, and we'll see what.
Well, and it is judged. It's like gymnastics. It's judged by a panel of judges.
Yep.
Right. And so that's really hard because it does come down to a subjective opinion of an individual. Yep. And if you got 5, 10, 20 people on a panel, it's still their opinion on based on their own kind of knowledge and experience of what sounds good or what a note should sound like. And or who has the most control and the cleanest noise or whatever. And so I think that it's very easy to for it to maybe their opinion to change from year to year. Maybe they'll pick Dirk one year, Phelps another, Jason or Corey another. But what's interesting is how often and consistently Corey Jacobson does win.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to?
You know what? Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls, they got a big part in Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. No, I'm just kidding, but
It's rigged.
No, it's rigged. No, Corey's an amazing caller. He it's kind of cool for me because I grew up listening to Corey, different things, and when I actually worked, it was 2012. I worked at Fastenal, and he happened to have his little. He just started his Elk 101 and stuff, and he had a little shop. And I was driving by one day, and I just happened to see this little sign that said Elk 101. And I swung in there, but he wasn't there. It was locked. And, I told myself all the time, I'm going to go back, because I just had read, Corey had Elk 101. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, man, I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to talk to him and stuff like that. Will never happen. And so he's kind of been, I guess you could say, an elk calling idol to me, because I've watched Corey a lot, and Corey
used that to get in your head.
He freaking crushed me, man. He knew what it was.
So, Corey's competitive. He's there to win.
Yep.
You're all friends and you're all dandy, but when the competition is on, he's there to win.
He plays it off well too.
He's a competitor.
Yep.
Question, people have an idea about calling, and I guess what I'm getting at is there are guys who can call and win an elk calling championship.
Right.
And then there are guys that can call and kill bulls constantly.
Yep.
And one thing I noticed with Corey, and I've only hunted with him a little bit last year, first time. It was really cool. I got to actually see it in person and watch Corey do his thing.
Right.
There were things that I learned. A lot of things I learned cadence-wise, like Corey's very patient in between. He really led that bull on for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm much more like, I'll probably call way more than Corey does. And Corey slowly ramped it up over time as he built up the tension, right?
Yeah.
Slowly built it up. He didn't go straight to third base, like right off the bat. Like he was like, let's
here's the box of chocolate.
Maybe he's got some experience there.
Ease our way in until that bull is now ready for third base, right? And where I'm like, I'm ready to just kind of go right there and go.
Brian's trying to steal home.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. And that does work when a bull's kind of already amped up. But
exactly.
We were dealing with some bulls that were maybe more reluctant, and I was able to watch Corey work his way up over time to get him where you wanted him to be. And I think that could be the difference between someone who's really good at calling but not necessarily calling in elk.
Absolutely.
All sounds are good, but there's something different about the person who can consistently call in a bull.
Yeah.
And then, for example, I think from when I hear Dirk call, like I hear him on Born and Raised, some of the videos just the last couple months, listening to him call, dude, that guy sounds like a real bull elk.
Amazing.
There's he sounds like a real bull elk. There's something in the guttural,
everybody knows Dirk's lip ball. You could have it on a video, and everybody knows that that's Dirk. I mean, it's just it's so good.
And you hear that, and you're just like, is that a real bull? And where Corey is super clean,
right,
technical, no flaws, but I don't hear that same guttural, real sound. It's just it sounds perfect, but not at the same level where I think it's. It could be an elk. It could not be an elk.
Right.
With Dirk, I'm like, that's an elk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I'm not the most crisp, clean caller. I mean, like I said, I grew up not calling competition elk. It was calling wild elk to elk. Don't sound perfect all the time, like you're talking.
Right.
And I've heard some weird stuff. I'm like, man,
me too.
Was that a guy down there that was trying to do? And here comes a bull walking out. You're like. What?
I was watching a Primos video this morning on YouTube, and this bull comes out, and he's big, and he's bugling. I'm like, that is the weirdest bugle ever. It doesn't sound anything like it's supposed to.
No.
And so that brings us back to this, being able to call in a bull versus make exceptional elk sounds.
Yep.
What do you think the difference is? Because before we do that, let's qualify your answer, because you've actually killed how many? You've killed.
So I've killed the bull. Nothing real big. Biggest bull I got is, I shouldn't even talk score, but 313, and but I've killed a lot of 5 points and 6 points. So I've killed.
These are public land bulls.
Public land,
over the counter,
archery only,
over
the counter.
Idaho.
Idaho. Yep, and I've got 16 of 18 years. I've killed a bull with my bow. I've shot 2 cows with a rifle because I can't draw a rifle tag. But when I was 12, is the only thing I could put in for because I was late birthday, November.
Yeah.
Only hunts that were still open were cow tags. So I killed a cow with the rifle.
And how old are you right now?
I'll be 31 this year.
So 16 out of 18 years.
Yep.
You've tagged out on a bull elk with a bow.
Yep.
How did you screw up on those other 2 years?
Well, we'll throw it back to 2008.
Just curious.
2008.
It's a better track record than me.
2008, I had knee surgery in June, and I wasn't ready to go. Pretty extensive, as a second surgery to where the first.
Yeah, I've seen your knee.
surgery.
It's extensive.
Oh, I've got there's 8 screws in there, and I tore everything in the knee except for the ACL.
Yeah, it looks like the Hunchback of Notre Dame a little bit on that. Like it's got some issues.
Oh yeah, it's
some shape.
Doesn't have the nice kneecap shape. The kneecap looks like it's this big.
Yeah.
And then last year I didn't kill a bull, and I had the opportunity to, but my dad and I were backpacked in like right around not quite 6.5 miles, and we had 2 herds kind of coming together, and across the draw I actually have some video of him, but it was so windy, he just fired up, raking trees, stomping the pond, chasing cows. And there's a big bull that we had been chasing pretty much all year, but he never got with cows, and maybe 1 or 2 cows, but he's a monster bull. One of the probably top 5 biggest bulls I've seen in Idaho.
Yeah.
And we thought this other bull was him, but he had got with this great big group of cows, and once my dad got in there, so he ended up killing this bull, and we realized that it wasn't the same bull. I mean, he had big frame, but really short thirds, and didn't have the mass that this other bull has. Well, as we're basically cleaning him, it's right before we actually started cleaning him. It was 45 minutes, maybe an hour before dark, and I slipped over, and I was going to go put the move on this bull, and I had a spike and 4 cows because I made some cow calls, but that spike kept coming up, and I couldn't get him to go down, and I needed to get up above this big bull, and called that spike in, and finally, the 4th time I called him in, and I have a short clip video, I actually swipe. The bull comes up the trees, and I actually swipe, and he turns, and I didn't hit him, but I just brushed his face, and he turned and finally went downhill. And so I get up in the top, and I get up there, and that bull's, he's hot. And so I screamed, and here he came. And I'd ranged some trees around, and 42 yards, and I drew, and he stopped and looked the other way, and I just thought, we have so much work to do with my dad's. We're backpacked in here. We got all night. Between the 2 of us, we're going to bone this bull out, load it up. Come to find out, we turn around the next day and bring the horses in. And I will never pass on a bull again. And I went 2 days last year because we had our 3rd boy born in September. We got 2 kids in September.
Look, if you don't put an arrow in it doesn't count.
And it doesn't count.
You can't say necessarily that you passed on it.
Yep.
It's like
I know.
It's because maybe you would have gut shot him. Maybe you'd have shot over him. And maybe you'd have shot under him.
So this has happened a lot. I probably would have missed. I've missed a lot of elk and mule deer too with the bow. So it happens. But no, like I said, I'll never pass on a bull again.
16 years of success out of 18. So let's get back to that question, which was, and I'm asking you this because you know how to kill an elk with a bow.
Right.
You've done it every year. Question is, what is that difference between being able to call and call an elk versus being able to call? And what's interesting is I know a lot of guys who don't sound very good on a bugle that kill and bugle in elk every year. What are they doing?
Like I said, elk don't sound perfect, and I think a lot of that is knowing elk. I think, where I hunt, I don't hunt hardly any timber. I mean, you get on the north side, there's some timber patches, but it is wide open country. And, I mean, you'll get some taller in the draws, some taller sagebrush, but just sounding like an elk, and if an elk can't see you, elk aren't quiet. You know, if you're in the trees, and I think a lot of that plays into it with some guys. They get super quiet. So then when they're calling in a bull and a bull starts coming in, that bull thinks or knows something's up because it's just, there's a cow calling back here or a bull bugling, but there's no sound. There's nothing else. There's no walking around, breaking limbs,
no
nothing.
raking.
You know, nothing like that. And I think that plays a lot into it. Guys get so cautious trying to be quiet.
Yeah.
And elk, stupid's not the right word, but elk are not the smartest animal when it comes to it. As long as you got the wind right and they really don't see you, you can be as loud as you want, really, around elk. I mean, when I get in a little bit of timber patches and stuff like that, I'm not quiet. And another thing, too, is I think a lot of guys who are successful continue to hunt throughout the middle of the day. I would say probably 60 to 70% of the bulls I've killed have been between about 10:30 in the morning and 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, a lot of those bulls, if they do have cows,
So Corey says too.
they'll put their cows to bed, and those bulls will go check perimeters or whatever. And I mean, I haven't had great success at big bulls, but they do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I've choked on some big bulls as well. So I mean, I've had opportunities, but
It's amazing how much easier it is to kill a raghorn
oh man,
at the same distance as a giant herd bull. It's just like, man, if you could just keep the nerves in play at the same level, you know.
Yep.
But there's ice in the veins when the stakes are lower, man.
So the best one is actually the same day I killed my very first bull when I was 13 with a bow. It was with my dad. And we had 2 monster bulls coming in. And when they came in, I was basically, the small 5-point was below me. And my dad was like 35, 40 yards behind me. And so we're on this steep, I'll kind of paint the picture for you. So we're on this steep, wide open, I mean, sagebrush and grass is like this tall. But it's so steep, you can kind of, once you're above them, just the crest of the hill, you can keep cover. Well, this small bull comes up, and I drew on him, and he's 35, 40 yards. And I hear crunch, crunch, crunch behind me. So I, not much experience. I turn around, and that big bull is walking right to where I'm at. And I just, no sights, nothing, just hit the release. And that bull was probably 40, 50 yards, and I shot 10, 12 yards. I mean, it just hit the side hill. And lo and behold, later on, my dad was about 35 yards from that bull, drawn on him as he's walking, just waiting for him to come past. And I blew it. I screwed that up for him so bad, but
I had that happen to me once. I had a bull at about 15 yards, big 6x6 in Oregon. It's a perfect situation. I'm at full draw. I'm waiting for him to take one step, and I'm going to smoke him. And my buddy, who's like 70 yards away, while it's still on the walk,
let one fly.
Just lets it fly and hits it like in the antlers. I'm like, what the? Plus, I was ahead. He knew I was there.
Oh,
it was just, it was.
Wanted to get the kill.
Let's get the kill before he gets the kill. It's like, it just.
Great hunting partner.
So I lost it that day for sure. So I've had Corey on here, Phelps, bunch of other elk hunters, my buddy Anthony, Ryan Lampers,
right,
and they've kind of shared like their ideal situation, elk hunting situation, and then how they like to work it.
Right.
So for you, what does that situation look like? How does Brad Hunt get the bull? Like, what's your strategy and your favorite scenario?
I don't do any preseason scouting is my thing. Idaho, for the most part, it's Idaho. There's elk everywhere. A lot of public land. Yes, a lot of places get a lot of high pressure, but my perfect scenario is deep backcountry. If you can get those bulls before they herd up and they're just starting to gather cows and stuff, it's easy, much easier. Mm-hmm. But I think what I've had luck with is you do get the big bulls herded up. They got their cows. You get these satellite bulls, smaller 6s, 5 points and stuff. They get pushed out of there. Mm-hmm. As soon as they get pushed out, a couple cow calls, and here they come. And my thing is after about the first week, I realize, okay, those herd bulls are herded up. I probably not going to have the best, because I still try for a big bull, but I put meat in the freezer. Because I haven't hunted a lot of other states and stuff. I mean, for mule deer and stuff I have, but for elk I haven't.
You're doing this on the weekends or on vacation time?
Pretty much. And, first 6 point or decent 5 that comes in within range, he's dead. I mean, I don't really hesitate much.
Well, Brad, it's hard to kill the big bull when you shoot the little bull first.
And I've been told that a lot, actually. And
who cares if you've met the goal? And
yeah,
I mean, frankly, I think when the big bull opportunity comes along, you're far more prepared for it, having killed a lot of lesser bulls over time.
That's what I'm hoping for. So I mean,
that's my theory.
That's my theory. Is my goal.
Yeah.
No, I've had opportunities. It's just where we normally hunt. It's super steep country. I've had bulls bedded, but it's all of a sudden they're there and draw. And I've never hunted with the rangefinder up until about 4 years ago. My brother let me borrow one of his old Bushnell brick, basically. And 2 years ago, I think I bought one off Camo Fire, and I still use it today. It's nothing fancy, I'm not your Walmart hunter, but I'm like a step above.
Nice.
Up until the last couple of years, I've been slowly getting better equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, even in 2017, the last bull I killed, I had another bow, a bow that I had won, but I didn't have it set up yet, and came back to my old bow and from 2004, an old A3 Mission by Matthews, and it did the job again. I mean, that bow I had so much confidence in. So, and
do you more cow call to bring in your bulls, or do you challenge and bugle? Like what?
So I know for a fact that I don't really, especially that open country, I don't do a lot of challenge bugles. I will depending on the situation, but for the most part, I've watched a lot of bulls, especially in that open country. If they don't see something, even cow calls or whatever, they're gone. I actually don't call a ton when I'm elk hunting, depending on different
just
scenarios.
for elk calling contests, you win those, but you don't.
But I don't really call many elk. No, it just depends on the situation. I mean, you get in the draws and stuff. Obviously, I'm calling to bring them in and that. But
are you mostly solo, or do you have a group or a team? Or
I, for the most part, just hunt with my dad. I mean, I've gone out a lot with guys, and I think actually my favorite thing of all time is watching somebody else kill a bull, especially if they're somebody that hasn't killed many.
Yeah,
I get more pumped up, I think, with that than actually when I kill a bull, and I get way more enjoyment out of that. And we were in Oregon. Another small story. So I was in Oregon working, and one of the guys, my welding partner with me, he goes, I've only ever killed a spike with my bow, and I think he was 34. And so I'm like, you know what? Like, if you want to go out, I'll go out with you. And he's about an hour from where we were working, where he lives, to hunt. Went up there, and right off the bat, we see the small raghorn and a cow. And I'm like, you want to kill that bull? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'm like, well, get up there. The wind's right. They're coming down. We just got to bring him from there to here. And a couple cow calls and stuff, and I ended up turning that cow, and that cow led that bull 40 yards. It was like 41 yards right past him. Stuck the bull. And I was so jacked when he hit that bull. But it's different. I've seen guys that try and bugle a lot where we hunt, and those bulls will just turn around, and if they don't see an elk right away, they'll scream their heads off, but they go the other direction.
And that's the thing. I think it's very different when you're hunting a pressured area and over-the-counter type area.
Yep.
They're educated. They're more aware. They're just a little different. How remote do you like to get, to avoid crowds?
We work our butts off, that's for sure. The bull I killed in 2015, we actually killed him, and as we were cleaning him, we actually were looking down about 100 yards below us were the mountain goats. And so he was we were up there like just under 10,000 feet.
Wow.
But we usually get back. I'm not afraid to get back in 4, 5, 6 miles.
What do you attribute the 16 years of success to then?
Luck. I don't know. I think I have to give pretty much all my credit to my dad because I remember from about 5, 6 years old, I used to ask, can I go with you? And he'd, well, I'm going to end up packing you out and stuff like that. And no, I promise I'll walk. I'll walk all the way. You get it half a mile in, and guess what? You're either holding on to the tail of his backpack or he's packing you, you know. But my dad, he's the same way. He's killed a lot of elk and a lot of really nice 6 points. And like the last couple of years, he's been hunting with his longbow, and just because he's like, I don't need to kill another elk with a compound. And ended up last year, he took his compound because we were chasing mule deer, and he ended up killing his bull. Stuck it at 82 yards, perfect shot, you know, dropped the bull right there. But he's not saying everybody should shoot that, but
yeah,
he practices it a lot, and he doesn't get excited around elk. Mule deer's different. He gets excited around mule deer. But I have to give all my credit to my dad because I learned everything that I know from him. You know, stalking to spotting to whatever. And we spend hours behind the glass. Not so much for elk, but for like mule deer we do. But
for elk, you know, do you spend more time? Do you know, you're saying you don't call that much where you hunt. Do you sneak in on them then?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it is if you can get them. I think most of it is when they're, like I said, I've killed a lot of my bulls in the midday. And when their cows are bedded down or they're away from the herd or whatever, they seem to be a lot more comfortable. And, you know, they're going, elk have to drink water. They go to water every day.
Right.
And if you can get between them and their cows, I think that's a big part of it. And, I mean, yeah, most of it's just spot and stalk, you know, and
that's why I like open country.
Yeah. Yep, you can see them. And because I didn't grow up doing that, I hate hunting thick timber. Yeah. I've hunted, you know, parts of Idaho that are thick timber. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
I don't like it at
all. I
all.
don't like it either.
I like being able to see.
Unless it's like, I don't know, deer from a tree stand in a pinch point or something like that.
Which I've never done.
That's different, but I do like open country. Just that finding them is such a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, and to put it in perspective, let's say you're in open country that goes on for miles and you glass up some elk. Mm-hmm. You know, in general, imagine that whole thing being timbered.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And where you see the two patches of elk, it's like, man, for you to wander or get close enough to hear them or to have them bugle or respond to a bugle where you could hear them. You know, I remember being in some open country near Hell's Canyon and just spotting elk and going, man, if this was all timbered, like I've hunted near Mount Hood and the Cascades and the Oregon coast, it's like you, with the same density roughly, you're just kind of wandering around hoping you get close.
Exactly.
And then hearing them, you know, or having them call back to you. Yep. And so you can spend days doing the cat road shuffle, you know, driving, riding, walking around, just calling, trying to find get where you can get close.
Right.
Certainly if you've hunted an area a lot, you grew up hunting it, you learn tricks. You learn where they like to hang out, where pinch points are, where they like to funnel through areas. And you can kind of start hitting those spots because, you know, they kind of go there year after year. But when it's a newer area, man, it's hard to, thick timber is not my favorite. Where open country, dude, you glass, and it's like, okay, game on. Yeah. Let's see what they do.
And that, I think that plays a big part into the success I've had is because, you know, I've hunted there since I was a little guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I know where elk are. I wouldn't say patterns, but I know, okay, there's water here. They feed here. I know where they go. And I know where I can always get into elk. Right. Is the thing. I mean, I always 100%, I know there's going to be elk in here. And even low country, I mean, 10 minutes from my parents' house, I can be into elk. But so are 75 other guys, you know? Totally. So I don't like seeing a lot of people when I hunt. And so I try and get away, get back in there and just, I don't know, I guess your getaway spot, you know?
So you'll spot elk, and then how much do you watch them to see what they're going to do, or do you just kind of go for the stock? Or
kind of know, like if you spot them early morning, you know they're going to bed, and most of the time that's pretty hard to get for us anyway, because usually we're down lower, working our way up. It's hard to beat them to that spot. So, some evening hunts, they're coming out, going to feed here. But a lot of it, once they get in that timber, even though it's midday, I've put a lot of stocks on, even with cows and stuff around. When they get to the timber, they don't just bed right away.
Yeah.
They'll mill around and do stuff, and that's where I've had a lot of success too, is even though it's open country, like I said, you get some of those northern slopes and stuff. You get little patches of quakies or some pine trees and stuff like that. But they're milling around in there, and you get in there and,
I found a typical situation in elk during elk hunt season is, you go to bed that night, right? And let's say you're in the low valley and all the elk are up high. And as the sun goes down, they're moving their way. And sometimes they'll just come in after dark. Right. They'll hit all the meadows and the low spots. That's where they are. They bugle all night long in the dark. There's a full moon. They're rutting. They're doing their thing. And then just as the sun is coming up, they're rounding up cows and they're heading back deep 7 miles, 5 miles, 8 miles up into the high country in the timber. And and it's no thing for them to walk 5 miles up into the timber, like nothing, 7 miles. And so, you'll have them come down, do that, and you try to intercept them in the morning, and I've found it's kind of fruitless.
Yeah.
It's so tough to try to get, especially when they're high pressured on over-the-counter type hunt. It's really
cows.
Yeah. And they're moving into the wind. They're not climbing up the hill with the wind at their back. It's coming at their face. So if you try to get in front of them, and you can't tail them because they just move way faster than you. You have to run to keep up with their walking pace.
Yeah, there's only a couple guys I know that can do that. I'm not one of them.
I've shadowed them quite a bit from behind, trying to but they just keep moving. It's like you're pushing them further and further almost. And so, I'm like of the opinion where I shadow them to see where they go. I try to keep eyes on them. I try to see where are they going to bed, and I'll follow them all the way back to where they lay down. Because the wind, while you're chasing them down and following them, the wind is in your face as well. They can't smell you as long as you're on their tail.
Which is number one, first and foremost with elk.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get the wind right, you have a chance.
So I chase them until they bed. And I'm like, okay, I know they're in that timber pocket, or in that area. And then usually it's swirling so bad throughout the day that there's really nothing you can do about it. But one thing I've found that kind of works is wherever they bed, if you can poke around that area without getting winded, you're kind of out on the edges of where they're at. If you can find a wallow or a watering area in the afternoon where that bull wants to get up and go, you could spend an afternoon there.
Absolutely.
Especially if you can get in a good wind pattern, like if it's a creek bottom and the wind the thermals sort of suck your wind down and you're right next to the stream. Or if you get up in a tree pretty dang high.
Right.
If you have a tree stand or something, you can set that up super high. And then when they bed and that bull comes out and that wind swirling, sometimes you can get past those senses.
Right.
Which I've done a few times, and I've killed a couple bulls from a tree stand. I love tree stand.
See, I've never, not once.
There's just no way you're going to be able to do that on the ground. The wind is going to blow. It's going to go one way and then another, and you're busted. But if you're up 30 or 40 feet into a tree, those thermals are sucking up. By the time it blows his direction, it's usually too high, or it didn't quite hit their area. So I've had bulls circle my tree 2 or 3 times at like 150 yards and then 100 yards and then like 80 yards, nose up, trying to smell something around the water hole. And I'm right on the hole. And then he's like, clear, trots into the hole, and I shot him because I'm so high. It didn't matter which way the wind was blowing.
Right.
I was out of it. He couldn't smell me. So
that's what I need to do to kill a big bull.
Well,
sit on water.
I think sitting does help a lot. Like it's just boring for a lot of people.
And that's me. I've done antelope blinds.
I don't think
times.
He can do it. There's just. But I'm just saying that's one way to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Corey explained, and we've done this a lot, that when that bull bed's down, if he is on a steep slope, sometimes you do get a consistent wind.
Right. And that's where I've had
especially if he's lower on the slope instead of up high where the winds kind of switch.
Right.
Then you got a consistent wind where the wind's blowing up at their face.
Yeah, and that's where I've had so much luck is because where we hunt and stuff, you're pretty much guaranteed wind all the time. And especially late afternoons and stuff or mid-afternoon, thermals have changed. They're blowing up, and it's usually really consistent.
And if you can get into a situation like that, and that bull's with his cows,
right,
and you can get above him, so you're on the other side of the wind,
yep,
right? You can creep in pretty darn close, and then this is what Corey has told me he does, as well as Jason Phelps. Corey said he likes to cow call gently, just a little bit of sound, a little bit of sound.
I know where this is going
and just kind of cow call, and then usually what'll happen is the theory. It's hard to know what a bull is really doing or thinking or vocalizing, but what'll happen is a bull will bugle and go, "Hey, lady, I'm over here," and it's really a bull calling to a cow, not a bull to a bull. And right when he's in the middle of, "Hey, lady, I'm right here," you cut him off with a mean, gnarly bugle. And he's like, "Oh, crap, there's a herd bull. He just interrupted me. He's got a cow there. He's in my and my cows are too lazy to move." That's the thing. Like, they can't, just get up, girls, and let's run away.
Yeah.
He's like, he has no choice at that point but to go, these winches ain't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I got to, move in and defend them, and I have no choice, and it's on. And so then he comes rolling in, and you shoot him.
Yep.
So that has worked really well for us. I've tried it a number of times, and I don't know why it works, but I've come in where I've just gone full, bugled like that, and I've had that bull get up and push his cows, and or run away.
Right.
Where when I play with him for a long time, and he doesn't bugle for a long time, it's like I've done 20 minutes of cow, 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 and that bull will not make a peep. But when he finally commits,
it's game over.
It's like, you cut him off, and I've had him light up. That hunt we did with Ben in Hell's Canyon, it worked. I just did the podcast with Corey. We did the exact plan to the T.
Oh, yeah.
And that bull wouldn't call. We knew he was there. Wouldn't call. I'm cow calling. And I wanted to bugle so bad.
Yeah. Everybody does.
Don't bugle. Don't do it. Just wait. But I had it ready. And finally, he piped off and just screamed, to this cow. And I just cut him off. And he immediately got up, scream, came charging at us. And Ben blew it.
Yeah.
So
we'll take it back to the choke artist part. So I'm not saying I haven't had big bulls come in, because I've done that same situation, same scenario, and then just let her fly. But a little too. I mean, it's usually steep, but let her fly.
What's funny is my cousin Ben has slayed some big bulls and a lot of bulls, and he's done them all solo.
Yeah.
And
you've been there. You just never seen it.
Well, we've called bulls in. I watched it actually, but from a distance. But I've called bulls in for Ben into his lap and Anthony, and he can't seem to capitalize on those. He has to it's just I don't know if it's the anticipation, the choke factor is different.
Right.
But when he's in predator mode, running down a bull, moving, stalking, sneaking in, he's a killer. If he's standing there waiting and a bull's coming, and all he has to do is draw and shoot.
Think about it.
He thinks about it. Yep. It's different.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. I tell my wife every time, I'm like, I think I'm going to run up by myself. Every time I've gone up by myself, guess what? Killed something.
Yeah.
I've killed a lot of elks with my dad too, but
something different about it.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
But that technique has worked. So that's another way. And in fact, the majority of our bulls we've all killed after the cows have bedded, and they're sort of wondering, they're getting up, or in the evening when they're coming down to feed. Because sometimes what will happen is, they don't want to come off that slope where they're bedded from until the thermal switch.
Right.
That way they're moving with the wind in their face again.
Yep.
But there's cows and there's calves, and some of those calves are anxious. They're hungry. They've been sitting all day. They want to run down to this luscious grass. And so these young ones are like, screw the rest of the herd. We're leaving even though the wind is at our back.
Right.
They just start making their way down. They're impatient. And the older animals, they tend to hold back. But if there's a hot cow and she's one of those younger ones, she starts breaking and the bull's like, dang it, this is dumb. The wind's not in my favor, but I'm coming down the hill anyway. She's the hot one. And that's where I've caught them coming down.
Yeah.
But mornings are nearly the worst time. I've not killed very many bulls in the morning.
Same here.
Nobody, we just don't, you're too little too late in the morning.
I think I've killed 2 bulls fairly early morning, and they were by themselves, and they were coming up the draw, and wind was not too much of a factor because it was kind of like more of a crosswind.
Yeah.
And so I knew where he was going.
And I'm not saying you can't.
Exactly.
I mean, of course you can. Some guys specialize in the morning.
Right.
I just haven't. And I think the higher the pressure and the more the full moon, the more they're done in the morning. They're right as the sun is coming up, they're halfway back to their bedding.
And that's a big factor is I don't know how much the whole moon cycle plays into everything. I haven't really looked into that a lot, but I know they feed a lot longer at night, and they're headed to bed a lot earlier. And so they're not staying out that mid-late after morning.
Sometimes they'll hang out till 10 in the morning, just like lingering and lingering.
Especially if you get your cooler, late September days and stuff. It's not as hot.
Now, if they're not pressured, which we've gone into some remote areas in Eagle Caps and some other places, Hell's Canyon, where it's not hot.
Yeah.
It stays cool later in the day. It's raining, whatever. They will stay out more throughout the morning. They're not in a hurry to go back to their bedding. But if it's a high pressure area over the counter, typically those animals are gone at daylight. Yeah. They could be either screaming all night, and then in about 30 minutes before the sun comes up, silence, and they're already back.
And that's how it was. So last year, September 10th was the first day I got out. And last year was a lot later year. Like the rut started much later last year. But we had multiple bulls that, some of your small bulls were with cows and that, but some of the herd bulls weren't even thinking about getting with cows yet.
Yeah.
And if I'd have set up on the other side of the draw, I went to where the initial first place I saw the elk. Got over there, started calling or whatever, and I ended up getting that herd bull up out of his bed. I didn't know he was there. He got up, but he's about 110, 115 yards across the draw, and there's a patch of willows in the bottom. But there was basically from that patch of willows 40 yards to the trees, there was nothing. And there was the same way going up to where I was. That bull would come out, and he'd scream his head off, and he'd look underneath the trees, but he wouldn't come out. Wouldn't come down to where I was at. Didn't see an elk there, so he went back in. 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and they bugled early morning. We could hear them walking in the dark, screaming their heads off. The smaller bulls, anyway.
Yeah.
And then we got in there, and finally about 9:30, 10 o'clock, he got up and he got fired up. But like I said, I was set up in the wrong spot. He would bugle his head off. But then about 11:30, silence all day, nothing. I knew that bull was there. Tried to find where he had bedded again and stuff. And we'd hike clear to the top. Found a bunch of other bulls and stuff, but just small bulls. It was early, looking for a bigger bull. And we knew that bull hadn't got with cows yet. We ended up that evening right before dark, as we're coming down to go to where the other elk are, I jumped that bull.
Yeah.
And he'd picked up 2 cows somewhere.
Really?
And he ran off, but the whole way down, as soon as it got dark, screaming again.
Yeah.
But midday.
Noise the crud out of
Yep. Midday, just stopped.
What do you think about moving in on elk in the dark? Because we do that a lot, like in the morning. I might get up at 3 in the morning to figure out where they're at, and you're kind of shadowing them.
Especially if they're bugling.
Or at night.
Yeah, or at night. And that's what I was going to say. Especially if they're
We'll go till
vocal.
midnight sometimes to figure out where they're at, walk miles.
Oh, yeah. And I haven't done it a ton. I've done it a few times, but I haven't done it a ton. But the times I have, where they're at because they're
because they'll talk.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll talk at night.
Exactly.
It's like nobody's hunting them.
Yep.
It's illegal to hunt after dark.
Right.
So they're perfectly willing to pipe off and scream.
And if you can get in close and figure out, okay, this is the direction they're going.
Mm-hmm.
If you can cut them off, then as long as you're not seen by cows or something, it can work. But
I would say that I'm a lot more patient now than I was in years past, because now I don't push the wind.
Yeah.
Like there's no point.
Yep.
Like you see here, you wind check and it's blowing away from the elk. You're like, dude, it's blowing away from the elk. It's 11 o'clock, noon. You're like, let's do it.
Swirling.
20 minutes later, it's blowing the wrong way. And then the whole herd blows out of there. I don't really make those mistakes anymore. I just don't mess around with it. I already know what the wind's going to do.
Yep.
It's just dumb. It's dumb to try to beat it, to try to circumvent that. You can't.
Yep. Early, I guess real late morning, early afternoon, that wind's thermals are rising.
Yeah.
It's going up.
And that's kind of why I prefer night as well, because by the time we move in, we know our only issue is it's going to get dark.
Yeah.
Your pressure window is dark.
Yep.
When it's wind in the morning, and really that's what it is, because at night we don't really go for them until after the winds have really settled.
Right.
And now we know what they're going to do. The wind thermals are they're pushing one direction. It's like, okay, now we can go for it.
Exactly.
We used to try to do it too early, and then you get busted. And in the mornings, you're up against, when's the wind going to switch? And that's a soft window. Like it depends on where the sun pops up, if it's overcast.
Exactly.
So many things go into play. And so I don't like that. Mornings just get worse and worse on you. But evenings get better and better the closer to dark.
Exactly.
So I much prefer shooting the gap at night, going for it at night, because the wind is just that much more reliable.
And I've had a lot of chances, like same thing, the wind at night, it's constant. But there's a lot of times the biggest thing is I've ran out of light. So it's like, well, I'll back out. Hopefully they're still around here in the morning.
At least you didn't blow them out. Yeah. Where in the morning, if you push it to the limit, then the wind switches. The wind switches and then it's over.
Yep.
So I don't like mornings for that reason. I almost prefer that I use the morning to find, locate, track, and try to kill afternoons and evenings.
Yep.
With more success. The other thing too is I've learned, some of it's just luck. You're waiting for a day that's conducive to the stock.
And the more time you put in, the more days you have,
that's a luxury you have.
It's a luxury you have, and you can choose your stocks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the weekend guy, stuff like that, you got to make it happen.
Right.
But if you've got
you're
time,
a Wasatch guy, you better do it, or the next dude's gonna do
it. Exactly. And I haven't hunted here, but man, I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, who can get to it first?
Right. There's some things you don't have that's why getting remote is nice.
Yes.
For a lot of different hunts. The further back you get, in general, you can get away from the pressure from others, and you can have the luxury, especially if you have days. But that's what I was getting at is, now, I might be watching the weather and then going, okay, I know they feed here, they bed here, this is where they travel. They've done it 2 days in a row. And I might look at that situation and go, the wind swirls here, it swirls there. There's really, the wind is the main factor, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, there's not a lot of options here, and you're just waiting for the weather to hit, because once that weather hits, it gets cold, you get a temp drop, it gets overcast. Now you're getting some consistent winds, either a weather wind or a thermal wind.
Yep.
Either one. And I don't know, we should probably explain the difference between that for some people that are listening.
Yeah. So your thermals are you're hot and cold. The normal temperatures of your day, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
As the sun's coming up, the temperatures are rising. If you look through a pair of binoculars or something, you can see the thermals. And weather is kind of where I hunt. If you get a pretty big kind of east to west wind, okay, that's like a storm coming in.
Yep.
Versus normally you got like your north wind or your west wind.
And those
in the area we are.
And those weather winds can override your thermal winds.
Exactly.
So you're kind of sitting here, if you have an area where you have good thermals typically, and there's some areas I've hunted where you can stake your life on the wind blowing, downhill early in the morning, and then blowing uphill later in the day.
And that's where we are usually.
Yep. And then as the sun comes down in the evening, it blows back downhill again. And it's like when you're in a place where it's that reliable, thermals are that reliable, the only thing you need to look out for is a weather wind coming in. But usually if that comes in, it's such a solid wind that you can work with that too.
Exactly.
Almost better,
Yep.
And so I'll sit there and I'll go, okay, I know where they're bedding. I know where they're feeding. I know kind of what these elk are doing in general. They have, as long as they're not pushed.
Yep.
That's their thing. Well, when you watch that, it's like now I'll look at the forecast and go, well, 3 days from now or 2 days from now, we're going to get, some rain and some cold weather blowing in. And it's like, okay, now I know what the wind's going to do. It's going to blow this way.
Yep.
Usually you'll know. And it's like, okay, let's not try and get in there now. Let's get in there on that day. And then on that day, you punch in and you move in instead of blowing them out on these fickle winds.
Yep, exactly.
Which a lot of these hunts I watch, they just blow it out with the fickle wind, blow it out with the fickle wind, blow it out with the fickle wind. They just do it over and over and over again. They're like, wind's killing us, wind every day. And every day they're pushing and bumping elk everywhere.
Right.
And in this case, you're talking about actually biding your time, being patient. And Lampers seems to do that a lot more than most guys I've ever hunted with. And that's why I bring it up, because it's his level of patience is different. I mean, a lot of times when I used to see an elk, it's like, there's no waiting for it tomorrow.
Right.
It's today.
Let's go get it
I'm
now.
making a play one way or another, whether the odds are good or not.
Exactly.
I'm making a play. And then when we blow up that one, we'll go find a different one.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sort of come to the realization that's not the best way to do it, especially if you have the luxury, like you said earlier.
Yeah. Your percentages, they slowly decrease every time you push it like that. I mean.
And especially if you're targeting a specific bull.
Yes.
It's going to take patience.
It's like you look at all the guys that usually kill either their bigger bulls or your bigger bucks especially. Mm-hmm. Those guys will pass on 5, 6, 7 or more stalks. They wait for that opportunity. Okay, this is a good stalk. That buck's bedded down. Now's the wind's right. Now's the time. Or they'll sit on that deer for hours.
Yeah.
But patience is, and you learn that over time.
Yeah.
And I've definitely got a lot better with it. I started out. I mean, most of them were luck, but I started out same thing. See, guess what?
Right.
We're going.
And I've learned to capitalize on that pretty well, actually.
Yep.
That's the thing. Well, Ryan was chasing coos deer last year in Arizona. He's after this specific buck, and it's the first day, and he gets to about 80 yards of that buck. And I'm like, dude, all he has to do is go another 40 yards or so, and he's going to have a great shot. And it's chasing some does, but it's real cautious. But it's dry. It's desert. It's grass.
Oh, yeah.
And he stops at that 80-yard mark, and he just sits there for hours. And then the sun goes down, and he came out. I'm like, dude, why don't you just Indian ninja stalk like 2 feet and wait and 2 feet and wait and get that 40 yards closer? And he's like, there's just all these things that can go wrong. Yeah. I'm waiting. I'm playing the long game. This buck is a buck it's a Boone and Crockett.
That was a monster.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to wait. One of these times he's going to walk to 20 yards and he's going to come there and he's not going to know I'm there. This way, I might step on a branch. I might do this. I might do this. I might do so many factors and I might blow it. I'm within the edge. And so Lampers will get right in that window and wait and kind of anticipate where he thinks it's going to go. And he waits. And if it doesn't work, he's got 2 weeks. He'll figure it out. He'll do it again.
And
that's a whole different mindset. And I think that's what you have to kill big ones.
Exactly. And like I said, after about the first week, I'll hunt hard for a bigger bull. And where Idaho season starts, the August 30th, most of those bulls are rubbed. They're starting to gather calories for the most part, but they're rubbed. Once they rub, they kind of go nocturnal almost until they start really getting into that rut.
Yeah.
But guys like Ryan and stuff like that have that self-control, it's a gift.
Ryan's annoyingly conservative.
Yeah.
You know, like patient.
It's a gift, though.
I'm a man that's not afraid to settle.
And that's me. That's me. Obviously, I haven't killed a big bull. It's like, okay, after that first week,
Yeah.
I've got this many days to
Standards
hunt.
drop fast.
There's something exciting, though. So Ryan really enjoys the waiting and the waiting. He actually, I've never hunted with someone who can drag out a kill shot longer than Ryan. Like, let's set this up. Let's get the rifle. We could shoot it now or we could shoot it in 10 minutes. Like, we can shoot it whenever. It's like, dude, just shoot it. Like, get it done.
Guy.
And he's kind of like super calm and relaxed. I mean, he can drag out a kill shot for a long time. And I think he enjoys that. Like the I've got you in my hands.
Right.
I could take this if I want, but you know what? I'm not sure I want to. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to enjoy this kind of interplay that's happening.
Sounds like a cat. I want you to pet me, but not yet.
You know, deep down, I bet Ryan's like, I know Brian wants to kill this animal already. I'm just going to make Brian suffer through this.
I'm sure there's some of that too. And it's interesting because, you know, that there's a certain enjoyment that comes from that. Now, I've hunted with guys that is not enjoyment at all.
Right.
Like they want to kamikaze. They want to go for the goal. They want to risk it all and
from here to here.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
pull and then pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Yep.
And there are some guys that I've seen consistently, like my cousin Ben is like that. He just manages to just be super reckless and risky and kill stuff. And you know, and the idea of waiting and just sitting there and all that, it'd be boring for him to do what Lambers does. And so I think you have to, at the end of the day, every hunter's got to play to their strengths,
right.
The things that they're good at, and the style and the type of hunt they want to have.
Absolutely.
You know, Corey's like, I'm not really interested. He did a spot and stock with Randy Newberg a few years ago. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Randy's, his Fresh Tracks, his TV show.
Right.
And you could tell Corey did not like it at all. His legs were all like he was cramped, and you know he did that stalk, and he kills the bull, but he's like, I'm not really interested in killing a bull that way. I want them to come to the call.
I want the excitement,
and that's a different type of hunt, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm by no means the most patient person. Obviously, like I haven't ever had the desire to sit in a tree stand. I've done a couple blinds for antelope, but no, either one, there's too many rattlesnakes, or I just can't sit that long, you know? So, like I said, I'm not the most patient guy.
Yeah.
And I kind of have that run and gun style, but I run and gun to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then it's, okay, I need to turn on, I don't know if you want to call it stealth mode or whatever, but you kind of switch to that.
Well, it'll be interesting this year. You know, every year you pick up new skills, you learn new things, and then you go back to the drawing board. Last year I hunted with my cousin Ben. I really tried to get him a bull. We hunted in Idaho over the counter. And, man, all he needed was 1 yard here, one step there out of it from behind. Yeah. And Ben would have tagged out, and we hunted for a week. Called a bull in for Chris to 10 yards. Just had some really good opportunities, but I wasn't really hunting for me. I went back and hunted with Corey, and on day one, he called in a bull, and I hit it. We tracked it 9 miles, never found
They're
it.
Tough, man.
I don't know if it was fatal or not. It was really hard to say, but we never found it. And so that was kind of my season last year. I'm looking for some redemption this year. I'm really looking forward to putting my hands on some antlers and bringing home some elk meat. You know,
I already got started with tar, and
I've had some great hunts. You know, and this last year I went out late season and bought an over the counter rifle tag for elk. Oh, yeah. Just boom, went and bought it. Colorado, just jumped in a rig, drove out there, hunted the unit 3 days, and shot a 6x6 bull, and brought it home. And you know, he's not a huge 6 bull, but man, it was. I still got an elk, but it wasn't archery, and it wasn't during the rut. It wasn't September. It wasn't the way I wanted it. But this year, it's the goal.
I'm the same way. I want redemption because after killing an elk almost every year, it's really hard to not.
And it's funny, like there are guys that generally they just don't fail very often.
Right.
They don't come home empty very often. And when it's been a while for me since I haven't done it with a bow. And yeah.
I mean, you think about like Donnie Drake.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking with him and stuff. How many years did it take him to actually kill his first bull?
Yep.
But now, I mean, obviously Donnie he's figured it out.
Yep.
And guys like that, it's pretty cool. It takes them long, but I've just been super lucky and fortunate.
So, calling wise, what are your favorite? What's your strategy there? What's your favorite kind of routine? Do you like to cow call them and lull them in, then cut them off with the bugle? Is that like a standard procedure for you?
No, I wouldn't say that. Obviously, that's like what you hope for. You hope for that bull being hot and just screaming his head off. But more kind of the cow calf calls. I've used like a lost calf call actually a lot.
Mm-hmm. Any estrus?
A little bit, yeah. And it all depends, Yeah. I mean, like last year, September 10th, the elk were not hot. Like they were not during the day. There was no activity.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I got lucky or maybe knowing how to call. I mean, I got them fired up, and I used kind of a variation of some not full estrus whine calls, but getting a little bit in there. And then, but I used quite a few calf calls.
Did you?
And then some bugles and stuff. But it was more nothing real aggressive. Nothing real aggressive because I think they're not in that aggressive stage yet.
Yeah.
And obviously that's what everybody wants. There's nothing like it, But I'd say more cow to calf calls, just mews.
Yeah.
And stuff.
So let's say there's some guys out there listening that haven't killed an elk yet. They're going out this year. They've been practicing. They're getting ready to go. What's your advice to these guys?
I've heard Corey say it. Jason, wind. It's the number one thing with elk. And when elk can't see you, or you can't see them, they can't see you. Push it. You get a bull that's raking. Lucky enough to have a bull raking in front of you. Go for it because they're not paying attention to what's around them.
Yeah.
But wind is first and foremost with elk. They live and die by their nose. And if they don't smell
respect it. You
gotta
gotta respect
exactly.
it. What do you think about Corey once told me confidence?
Oh, absolutely. I listened to that podcast and it's 100% true. And obviously the more elk you put on the ground and things like that, you continually build your confidence and stuff. And like me, I have no doubt in my mind. Obviously, I can go out and kill a raghorn like that. I have that confidence. But I haven't gained that confidence yet to know that, okay, I can do that on a big bull. But I know I can go kill an elk.
Yeah.
But it plays a big part, big role, for sure.
Yeah, elk seem to be, of all the animals I hunt, elk is definitely my nemesis. I tag mine, I get mine, but freaking man, it's never easy.
Yeah,
it's always a freaking battle. It seems to go to the wire to the last days. It seems to be fraught with heartache and frustration and close calls.
Yeah.
And so every year it's like I've made jokes about elk hunting, archery elk hunting during the rut. And this I'm talking about over the counter type public land hunts.
Right.
They just can rip your soul out.
Exactly. And I don't know, there's something about it that's just addictive. It's like a drug, especially when you experience the rut and
Bulls screaming in your
bulls
face.
screaming like we watched a few years ago. And it was 2009 or 2010 where the wolves had really started playing a pretty big factor.
Mm-hmm.
And we seen this, huge herd of elk. There's a couple hundred. And you'd have big herd bulls. One bull would go mount a cow, and this big herd bull would come in and smack him. take him down. They'd fight and rutting, but just in one great big group. It's like nothing I've ever seen.
I came across that that year that Ben shot that bull where his whole main beam was busted off, and he had a 4-inch antler tip buried in his shoulder. And you couldn't get it out at first,
Right.
like pulling, it finally come out, and then there was all this pus
Festered
and stuff. He's walking around no problem with a 4-inch antler buried in his shoulder.
I've shot 3 bulls that have had a broadhead stuck in them.
Jeez.
So I shot a 5-point. It was a 5x6. I mean, it's 6. He's pushing that inch to count it.
Yeah.
But he had a broadhead stuck right in his back, in his vertebrae. Anyway, I mean, it was buried. An old muzzy head.
This year, it's interesting how tough they are because my buddy's son, Anthony's son, Barack, shot that 192-inch mule deer up in Colorado on the youth hunt, and it was just a kind of a regular, like 2-point draw kind of hunt. Goes up there and he shoots a 192-inch mule deer. It's just a gorgeous buck. But he was walking on the skyline and his back was kind of hunched up, and we were looking at it going, well, what is that? You shoot it. He had been shot with a rifle 2 weeks earlier.
Oh.
And that shot had gone right through the spine, like right under the spine.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a gaping hole into his innards that just was kind of growing over a little bit with pus and infection. But you just pulled that little bit of hair to the side, and there's just an opening of his insides to the world.
They're tough, man.
And I mean, just a 2-3 inch hole out each. It just punched a giant hole through it, but just went under the spine. And those vertebrae are long. I mean, but just above the guts and the vitals and stuff. It was about center back. Didn't really hit anything. And he's out there rutting and chasing does and stuff. And then when he wasn't rutting, he kind of hunched up and would walk funny. And then he'd go back to acting normal, and then he'd hunch up, But he's old. Probably wasn't going to live through that winter.
Right.
He's kind of done. He was at the end, 192-inch old deer, but still strong, but bullet right through his back, and he still going.
I've seen bull elk same way. Like
elk blow my mind. When Ben shot that one bull with the one horn, there were so many elk in one spot, slamming into each other and fighting.
It's something
and
else.
There was like 3 bulls. 2 for sure with broken main beams. Other ones but broken off at the base. So they had one horn.
Right.
And they're going at each other. And the one bull that had both of them were still fighting. And you could tell because the entire side without a horn had holes all over in it where the antlers had just stabbed into them. And one of the biggest bull that was there, which was probably a 380 bull, 370-inch monster.
Oh yeah.
He had one beam and he had like 80 cows. And he had one beam coming out the side, and as he came up the hill and he was screaming, and there was a nice 6x6 bull that was there maybe in the 330s or so. Young, tough bull. He's screaming, they're screaming, and they come running over the hill, 2-3 herds all colliding. And as soon as they saw that bull with the one horn, they all turned around and herded up and pushed away. They're like, don't get near that guy. He had like 80 cows to their 20. And they're like, they're just, and it was so crazy to watch that herd behavior when you get them all in those kind of lowlands, like Arizona type stuff.
Right.
This is deep into Hell's Canyon. But this bull had no eyeball. It had been gouged out, and it was just a giant festering hole of pus that ran down his face and down his body. And he's just like a dinosaur, just screaming and walking up that hill. And those bulls ran from him. They didn't care he had one horn. They didn't care. This dude's a psychopath, one-eyed pirate, and they're just like out. And I don't know how long that bull, if he could make it through the winter with so much damage done. But at the moment, he seemed like a Mack truck that wasn't going to stop.
They're tough. And I watched bulls, like elk have there's a big void on elk.
Mm-hmm.
They got big lungs and stuff, but you hit high, there's such a big void of no vitals. They're going to be fine. But I watched a bull one time. A friend of mine, guy I knew, watched him hit this bull, and we trailed him forever. We'd catch up to him and just still rutting, pushing cows. We found that bull 2 weeks later, still rutting, pushing cows with just a great big fester patch, just like a big sliver, you know, and just going like nothing had happened.
It's wild.
And
well, maybe this is the year.
Jason at Worlds told me I was going to kill a 360 plus bull.
Oh, then it's going to happen.
So I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
It's going to happen.
You were blessed by St. Phelps.
Are you blowing Phelps?
I am blowing Phelps. Nothing else.
Right on. All right. Well, we should wrap this up. This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Brad's our intern. He's going to be learning how to run cameras and how to edit film and how to do podcasts and stuff, and it'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Excited too.
I don't know how good I'm going to be at it, but I'm excited.
If you suck, we're going to get rid of you real soon.
I'll call for you.
No, like I said earlier, I mean, it all presents different challenges, you know.
Yeah.
Teaching a guy a lifetime of elk, of not just elk, but just hunting experience,
Right.
you know, is a different challenge than teaching someone how to use a camera and edit and film, you know, and choose your poison. It's really the rare guy that's a killer and also the cameraman,
Right?
You know,
and editor.
and editor.
It's like a three-legged stool, and
it's
you've
different.
got like a handful of guys that seem to have one leg, but not all three.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say like Adam Foss, for example. I've hunted with Adam. He helped film the Leupold hunt that I did on Kodiak Island with Cole Kramer.
Mm-hmm.
Foss he's a hunter. You know, he knows how to kill.
Right.
And you know, he does. You know, he can hunt and he's a whiz and a talented photographer and cameraman. So, it's nice when he's over your shoulder because he gets it. He knows.
Right.
He can also contribute on the hunt a lot. You know, you're not, you know, having to tell him how to load his pack or how to fix his feet because they got blisters or deal with it or cook their meals. Or, you name it. Like, but then again, you know, I mean, so he's kind of the exception in general,
Right.
you know. So
We're hoping.
Jay Beyer is one of those guys too. He's just he hasn't hunted a ton throughout his life, but he's been an outdoorsman throughout his life.
Exactly. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Just time in the woods makes
a huge difference. So Luke is extremely talented and gifted, and you know, as you've seen from the recent tar videos and stuff that we're producing and the bear hunts that he helped me edit.
So good.
You know, it's nice to have that resource, sharing knowledge and teaching both of us, you know, how to edit better, and Brent too. So it's cool. It's fun.
Yep.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Hope this was useful. Hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and sign up for the newsletter at briancall.com. And we're going to keep you informed of what we're doing. And also, go give Brad a follow. What's your Instagram? It's Brad
_W Hunt.
_W Hunt.
I have Facebook and stuff, but I don't use it a lot. So Instagram.
Yeah, I haven't been on Facebook in a year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
On my personal Facebook account. I haven't logged into it. I don't even have the app on my phone. My gritty Facebook, I'll kind of post indirectly through Instagram, but I was looking at it the other day and I'm like, who even uses Facebook? And I got on there and I'm like, well, a lot of people use it. I'm just not one of them.
I just get on there to shop Marketplace. that's the main reason.
And so it's like, well, I'm not a social media fan, a huge social media fan. I get kind of burned out on it. I just feel like it just can take up so much of your time.
Oh, yeah.
I watched a TED Talk the other day that was called Quit Social Media. And I grabbed it and I sent it to Casey and Jordan at Mountain House. I'm like, here's my case right here. Here's why you should quit. And it had a lot to do with just mental happiness.
Right.
You know? So that's why I'm a big fan of the newsletter and having people sign up there. Because, you know, like I talked to Corey Jacobson at Elk 101. His email newsletter is intense.
Right.
And he's put over 100,000 people that are part of that.
Right.
And so he's able to just send a direct message to all those people that are interested in his content. And it doesn't matter if Instagram shuts down your channel. It doesn't matter if YouTube yanks you. It doesn't matter if, you know, you can still reach out to those people and say, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Yep. This is where we're at. And it's a great way to do it. So
yep, exactly.
Sign up folks, briancall.com. It's easy. All right, that's it.
Yep, been fun.
Stay gritty.
Stay gritty.